I have a very complicated relationship with the Kitty terminal. On one hand, it's the best terminal I've ever tried. I mean, I've tried like two, if I'm being honest, but it's the best terminal I've tried. It's being praised by many people as with the idea of Alacrity is the best terminal emulator and Kitty is better than that. And considering that Alacrity is ridiculous to configure, it's confusing at start, and I heard that it's not just me being bad. A lot of people share the sentiment that Alacrity is actually difficult to configure, which feels nice. Like, it's not me who's just bad. Turns out it's like a common issue, I guess. While Kitty is a lot easier to configure, which we're gonna get to today. And yeah, also Alacrity does not have tabs, which to me, like, it's such an obvious feature. Sure, with my tiling window script, I've been far more likely to just open more windows rather than panes, but tabs is still a very, very good idea. That it's kind of strange that the quote-unquote best terminal ever doesn't have them. And I'm not considering stuff like console on KDE and probably also console on GNOME, because I have this, like, I guess rule in my head. If it's something that I should probably switch to something like this, yeah. If I'm going to be using something a lot, like my terminal, like my text editor, my browser, I'm not gonna just leave the default. Matter of fact, my first reaction is to switch off that default. And just starting to use KDE and using console immediately felt like super wrong. My dislikement of console, let's just say that it had two vertical top bars at the start. If I open a terminal and the first thing I see is a fucking file view edit, that fucking shit, and another bar, fuck no, I'm not using it. So I'm at KDE, right? That's what I use. And it's surprising how a certain easy feature is not easy almost anywhere. So, have you ever noticed that, let's say you're in a browser, let's open some tab that I have, something like in Rust, for example, something where we can like easily scroll. Let's go here. Yeah, sure, this works. So, let's say you're reading. An even better example is a book, which I do not have open. So, what options do you usually have? You have an option to scroll down and up. Usually it's not as easy as pressing J and K. Usually you would have to use the arrow keys, which are worse, interestingly. Well, they do a slightly different thing, right? So you can scroll by line. That's pretty nice. Let's say we've read up to here. How would you scroll? Probably at this point you would have already scrolled kind of like this, maybe, or to keep it in the center of the screen, and then as you read, you scroll even more and more. Okay, that's fine enough, but what if that involves more than just a few J's every once in a while? Like, this surprisingly works, but usually it doesn't. What other options do you have? You have an option to scroll by an entire page by pressing page down and page up, usually. Once again, I have it better, and I'm going to explain why. But this is entirely too much. So currently the thing at the bottom says each method takes an ordering, blah, blah, blah. We press page down. Well, okay, so how it's supposed to work, or how it usually works is that once we press page down, no, actually, let's just press the usual page down. Yeah, so what used to be at the bottom is now slightly at the top, so we can still connect it, but it's very much at the top. So what you're doing here is not putting it in the center, which is where I like to read my text. I want it to be like in the centerest of center, which is why recently I started using a terminal on the left so that my code is more in the middle of my screen. It actually works really well, surprisingly for me. So by using page down and page up, you can't really make what's currently at the bottom of the screen to be in the middle. And you would have to, let's count, 1, 2, 3. 3 isn't too bad, but I don't know. Wouldn't it be nice to have something in between? Something that both scrolls bigger than a single line and smaller than a full page, because for me it's really easy to lose track of things if I scroll by an entire page. Usually I scroll by an entire page if I want to go to some place quicker and already know where more or less it is. We get into the tragedy. The tragedy of this simple feature not existing pretty much anywhere. I now have it thanks to the Vimium extension for Chromium browsers, and there are alternatives for like every browser. So it's a very common idea. It lets you scroll by half a page. So what's currently kinda at the bottom becomes pretty much in the center. And this is a far more natural way to scroll. Alright, my browser doesn't have that. Fine. Does VS Code have that? Well, VS Code by itself, no, it also doesn't have that. It has scroll by line and scroll by an entire page. It doesn't have scroll by half a page. I'm pretty sure. Let's just make sure I'm not lying to you. Scroll half. Maybe it does. Let's say page, maybe no. No, I thought that maybe it words it a bit differently. But the word page would most definitely be in that command name. So yeah, it does not have a way to scroll by half. Cool, okay, maybe, like, I use the NeoVim extension, right? This already kind of breaks any argument for VS Code, but let's give it the benefit of the doubt and say that, okay, well, can you do that with NeoVim? The answer is, well, which is like the standard answer to any programming question, because by default, Control-D and Control-U, yeah, they kinda do it, but in a very strange and a non-intuitive way. Do it, meaning scroll half a page. The way that your cursor moves and the way that the window moves is really hard to keep track of, so while it works, it's not very good, which is why I made it a bit of a different way, and I'm pretty sure I have a video on that. Let me actually send you it. HL Motions? Yes, this. Let me send that to you so you can go into detail how we can make NeoVim scrolling a bit better, in my opinion. Okay, so NeoVim is like, in terms of having it. VS Code doesn't have it, browser doesn't have it. Does Anki have it? Fuck no. I mean, you could alt arrow keys once I actually click into the window. Don't ask me how I did that. I'm gonna get to it maybe on this stream, maybe on the next one. I'm super excited about it. I'm not sure if I have the time. Is that half a page? Is it? It's not. No. Yeah, alt arrow keys is like a full page because we were at the top, the lowest thing that we can see is Dathura, and once we Alt arrow key, we see it pretty much at the top. So yeah, it also supports page up, page down, by the way. And they do the exact same thing, interestingly. I thought they was slightly different, but I guess not. Yeah, so Anki doesn't have it. Well, I guess you wouldn't expect it to have that. Because, oh, you just click with your mouse. Fuck the mouse. Does Discord have it? It's also a browser application in my case, but even if you have the desktop application, you do not have a way to scroll by half. In its defense, the page up and page down motions are really smooth. And they're about as good as it gets, but no half a page. I can kind of like keep showing examples. Nothing fucking has half a page scrolling, even though it's like the middle and it's the golden middle, in the sense that that should be the default by like everywhere. Should be page down, or maybe half a page down by default. I think the latter. So Kitty, the terminal, something that you scroll very much in by executing commands. Let's say we echo hi, echo hello, and scroll back. We would want to be able to scroll. Okay, what can you configure in Kitty to let you do that? Let me spare you the time and say that yeah, it also does not have scroll half a page down. What we can do is scroll one line and scroll a full page, which is the same exact issue that I've been complaining about for 12 minutes. Great. Now, the more doc reading people here might say, it's going to be a really long sentence to start. I have that saved, so I think launch, maybe actions. I think it's going to be easier to show you that in the terminal. Where is my cursor? Okay. We can do kitten, boom, scroll window. So this lets you execute a shell command to affect your terminal instance. That sounds incredible, doesn't it? Because you can essentially like automate some things through shell scripting. I absolutely love that. Okay, let's look at the help of scroll window. What can we do? Immediately see at the top that you can scroll to the start, you can scroll to end, and importantly, you can scroll by half a page. I saw this and I got super excited because, oh my god, something I've been using before is, I wonder, I think we can just search for this here, the command that I used to use. Let me try to remember what it's called. Something output. Yeah, this is it. So show output from the first shell command on screen on a page or like less. I used to have that binded to Alt-I, and something similar to this. Oh, something similar to this, which isn't here, and I'm not sure where it would be. I do remember having it in my thingies. I think you can make this work to actually show the command off. Let's do glow so we can look at the commits. Change background to standard. We're looking for kitty stuff, right? Yeah. Change normal, add more M. Alt M, opener, has cursor in the middle. Okay, so we need this commit going to show you a little like hack. It's not a hack really, it's just how Git works. But it feels like so good that it might as well be a hack. Wait, I forgot to actually... Oh, well, this sometimes happens. Let's do git show. This maybe? Okay, yeah, that works. Then kitty.conf, and we pipe it into code. Let me immediately explain what this does. We use the git show command to print the contents of a file at a certain commit. That's the first part. And then we pipe it into code, meaning into VS Code. And you can just open files like that. So it can show it to you like easier. Oh, and it even has Ruby syntax highlighting finally. Better yet, let's go to the terminal. You see that it's still holding up our prompt, I guess. You could just press Ctrl+C. The file will stay, don't worry about it. And you can use the terminal normally. But actually, once you close this file, it will stop holding the terminal. So what you could do is, after the code hyphen, add some more commands that happen only after you close this file in VS Code, which is such a cool idea that, like, wow. It's super cool that it works this way, rather than just opening and immediately releasing the thread, which would be more like, I guess, natural. But this is a bit more stretchy in this sense. You can use this kind of functionality in more ways. Right, so let's actually go and look. Interesting. By this point I already changed it. So I guess not this commit. Oh, and then we can just close the file. Nice, isn't it? Okay. Let's add this, because I guess I guessed wrong. I keep forgetting whether I should be git showing the commit or the one before it. Oh, here we go. So this is the command. But you would change tab to overlay. And for Y, let me send you this link. Fuck. Changed quite a lot of my hotkeys, so I'm getting confused here and there. You can read that as to why we're using overlay instead of tab. So what this would do is that wait, hold on. This entire time I've been thinking of the wrong thing. Yeah. Well, this is important for what I'm going to be talking about later, so I'll keep it. So, right. Alt-I used to show last non-empty command output in less, and this would just open the entire scroll back. So everything you've ever seen in your terminal, it would open it in less also. And the thing about less, what file can we look at, which is kind of big? Yeah, let's go blender-config.py. The thing that's amazing about less is that it does have half a page scrolling. You can press D and U to go half a page down and up. And this is big. And this is the reason I've been using those Alt-I and Shift-Alt-I hotkeys so much. The fact that they let me very conveniently scroll down and up. And then also, if I remember correctly, unless you can press F, you can press F to scroll a full page down, and B to scroll a full page up. So you still have that functionality if you want to, if maybe you know what you're getting to and want to speed up. But you have a bit more generality with D and U, and then J and K. But now comes the Alt-M hotkey. Alt-M is a different thing that let me open the entire scroll back, so kind of like Shift-Alt-I. In NeoVim now, the benefit of this is that, say I do glow again, and now I want to copy this commit. I would very much rather not have to use the mouse for that. I don't like it. I super hate it. What I could do is press Alt-M to open the entire scroll back in NeoVim. And the thing about it is that I could then just jump here, copy it, close it, boom. No questions asked. So yeah, that's super nice, but it wasn't before. This specific mapping was a lot worse. Let's imagine this situation. We scroll a few lines up. Unfortunately, I just rebooted, so my scroll back is really low. Let's do something like paru ASDF to fill it in with more bullshit. Yeah, so let's say you scrolled up to here. Better yet, let's... Oh, I don't have that hotkey anymore. Imagine I pressed Shift-Alt-I to open my scroll back in less, so I can more conveniently scroll, and then I scrolled up to here. And then I realized that, oh, I want to copy this, for example. Well, I can't really do it. Because first of all, this launch thing with screen scroll back and all that stuff, it completely ignores your show scroll back and show last non-empty command output thingies. So it won't care up to which point you've scrolled in those. Well, fuck, right? This very convenient method of scrolling is kinda non-viable. Fine. I scrolled there somehow, just now, like literally right now, right? So let's say I find a way to scroll here, and now I want to like easily copy, which I'm currently seeing, into my clipboard by using NeoVim, by opening this in NeoVim. Right now, this works, as I've used 2 times already, but this didn't used to be the case before. It would open the entire scroll back. Rather than what I'm seeing, it gives me everything. That sounds amazing, right? In theory, but it also does not care up to which point you have scrolled, even like literal scrolling. I'm not even using less right now. The scrolling is real, it's recognized by Kitty, but if I used this, this mapping in this situation, I would end up at the bottom. And well, shit, now I have to scroll again and remember what I even looked at. And for me, NeoVim didn't used to be transparent until yesterday's, and the colors still are gone, so it would be harder to parse what was I just looking at, because it looks kinda different, a bit. And all of that combined is really shitty. I used to use it that way and just kind of deal with it, and then defeatedly I would sometimes have to grab my mouse to copy something. And I'm like, well, shit. Because it was legit just more convenient that way to use my fucking mouse, something that I infamously hate doing. It's not necessarily about speed usually. Usually I don't like using the mouse because it's less comfortable, it's less convenient. And sometimes it's so much faster that, okay, fine, I'll give in and use the mouse. I really dislike the situation. And I'm kind of like talking about two things at the same time, I'm now realizing. So, two issues, right? My convenient half a page scroll is useless in the sense that it's not recognized by Kitty. So even something like what I'm using right now wouldn't work with it. And therefore, why am I using something that won't let me continue on the action, instead making me have to repeat it? Let's start with scrolling. So what do I use now? I removed the Alt-I and Shift-Alt-I hotkeys because I found them useless and because I've implemented a few more things that make them obsolete. So for natural scrolling, like Kitty scrolling, what I'm currently using and used to have before too is scroll to prompt -1 and 1. So what does this do? It simply scrolls by your shell prompt, and it's very convenient in this sense because that's usually the separator that you want to go by rather than strictly screens. But then if I want to go by screens, I also have that on hotkeys, which I have already shown you. And then I also have lines. I do not have a way of half a page scrolling. Or do I? We'll get to that, don't worry. So we have this, and the other scrolling hotkeys, and then to scroll to the start of the scroll back buffer and to the end of it. Okay. And I'm showing you those hotkeys here because they didn't actually change. I had them and I still have them. Oh, and the scroll line and page up and so on, I did change those because I found that pressing Alt-C and Alt-X is kind of inconvenient. Well, it's fine for the most part, but when you add Shift to the picture, it's just horrible. It's like undoable. I'm not about to pull out my second hand to scroll. It's just not something that's gonna happen. So I scrapped them. Okay, so we've figured out like normal scrolling. But what does that let us do? Let's go back to this command, which I've explained why it's shit. Because it doesn't actually take the scrolling into account. Yet, as I'm doing it now, my scrolling is being taken into account. Let me finally show you how this works. Turns out, you do not have to say screen scroll back. You can just say screen. And that's it. And it's in the launch docs, which I already left in the chat. And it's that simple. I've been dealing with this shit for a long time. And I tried a more complicated solution. The way that this launch, std and source, blah, blah, blah thing works is that it sets an environment variable called kitty something something. And then I tried from NeoVim checking with Lua if that variable is defined, and then I parsed it to get the amount of lines that I scrolled by, and they unfortunately go from the bottom, and then I needed to figure out how many lines there are in that entire buffer, make math on it to go from the bottom rather than from the start, and then move my cursor, which surprisingly was the most difficult part. It just did not move. I spent a lot of effort on this until I realized that, oh, I can just say screen. And that fixes my entire issue in a better way anyway. Sure, I now don't have anything aside from this screen, but I don't need to. That's kind of all I need. The functionality I want is oh, there's something that I'm currently looking at, this, for example. What I want to do is just copy it. And that's pretty much what I can now do. Okay, so the cursor and like what I'm looking at may be like a bit different. Not even, I guess the coloring and the line numbers kind of fuck it up just a bit, but it's close enough where it's super viable, especially after me removing the background and making my NeoVim transparent. And how do we do that? We go to plugins and download this plugin. Let me copy and paste the name of the plugin to you. Cool. So we have this key now. I'm using overlay here as well. You would change GM to just capital M though. I have to do it this way because of a remap. Cool. What if the output of a command doesn't fit into your screen? So I talked a lot about half a page scrolling. And there's a reason for this. So if we press Alt-M, as you can see, we cannot see any more text from this output. So my capital L and capital H hotkeys to do exactly half a page scroll, they do nothing here. I can now press Control Alt M to, wait for it, open the output of the command at the top of your screen in the terminal in NeoVim. Sounds complicated, but I'll show you how it works and how it's actually super nice. Now I get the entire output and I can scroll through it normally in a way that I'm super used to doing. In VS Code, I do it. In NeoVim, well, we are in NeoVim right now, so that's how I scroll here. So I can do it in a very natural way. Better yet, my hotkeys for like kitty scrolling are also pretty similar. They do a bit different things, but the mnemonics are there anyway. So super nice. I get half a page scrolling now. That's basically how I intend to do half a page scrolling in my terminal. And then conveniently, actually before we get to that, let's actually explain what top command of the terminal even means. Like, what is that? Currently, at the top of my terminal, like literally what I'm looking at is this. And therefore it is opened. I scroll to another one, and now this is opened. Without the shell prompt, by the way, which is really cool. So I can combine using my scroll to previous or next prompt hotkeys and open the topmost command's output in NeoVim together. And then I can like use the features of Vim to do something with this text. This is so cool. Or just like copy it, as simple as that. So that's how they combine really nicely. Let me show you the mapping for this. Everything is the same, except instead of add screen, we do add first command output on screen. Boom. And also instead of GM, also capital M as well. Nice. But more conveniently, and something that I'm going to be doing most often, let's do echo, let's actually do Alt D to scroll, to put the scroll back into scroll back. Let's do echo hi, echo hello. Now, if I press Control Alt M, I get into hi. Can I press this? No. Why can I not scroll to the next prompt? The reason for that is that it works with stuff that is already in scrollback. And stuff that is already in scrollback, let me press nothing. Just scrolled some way, right? Doesn't really matter how. As I start typing, it goes back into scrollback and I cannot see it anymore. So these previous two prompts are not in scrollback, they're still like active, they're still seen. And therefore, they don't scroll up automatically once I type. And in this situation, for these prompts, I cannot use these. So this begs the question, how do we open hello in NeoVim? By using the open last commands output in NeoVim hotkey. And this is going to be the most often used because I could be something like power SDF. I'm like, I can't be asked. Boom, I immediately open it in NeoVim. It starts at the start of the output. I can scroll. I need like the 11th. Boom. Right? Very simple. Very easy to like remember and use. Yeah. Another way, let's also Alt D, echo hi, echo hello again. Another way of doing this would be to move them to scroll back and then scroll to the previous prompt and then use Control Alt M. That's another way of doing it, but it's like more steps and more brain power to do, and also brings it into scrollback unnecessarily. I might not want to. Let's say I do ls. When I do ls, I often want the output to still stay on my screen for the next command that I want to do. I don't know, fucking cat, whatever. I usually do it a bit of a different way because I could be, I can just press Alt L. Whoops. That's hilarious. Is it not Alt L? Oh, it got overridden. The fish hotkey got overridden because it's now a... Oh, wow. Let me write that down. I did not realize that. Wow. Bring back fish Alt L hotkey. So this actually is an issue that I would have to use this method for, where I actually do ls and look at the output continuously. Yeah, so I do some like cat, kitty, blah blah blah, and I want to look at the output of ls as I'm typing this command. Well, if we did this and then this to like open it in NeoVim, and now as I type cat, I don't have the output of ls on my screen anymore. Which is why it's like super helpful to have a specific hotkey to open the last command's output in NeoVim to separate the two. There are some other options which are once again in the launch docs, all like listed and explained to various degrees. But I found these three: screen, last command output, and first command output on screen. I found those three the most useful. So those are three new hotkeys that I now have, which kind of changed the way I use my terminal a bit. I'm relying a bit more on NeoVim to do what I honestly expect my terminal to do. I read the issue, like the GitHub issue, on this entire thing on GitHub. I already said GitHub, lol. Their argument was the terminal scroller will never be as good as just using the tool that you're already used to. You might as well use it. That's basically was the argument. Which is really funny because motherfuckers made a whole Unicode paster. It works by inputting the code, by names. Now finally this thing that I complained about not working, it works now, has some list of emojis. I'm still not sure where it's supposed to be. Like, how can I edit it? And why those? It's still weird. And favorites, which you can configure. A lot of functionality for a terminal that says that, oh, we're not going to implement this because your thing is definitely better. Well, why are you making a Unicode picker then? It's super weird and inconsistent. See what I mean by I have a complicated relationship with Kitty? Yeah. About complicated relationships, I forgot to finish my thought. We can do kitten, scroll window, half page, right? So why do I still not have a hotkey to scroll Kitty like by itself by half a page? Because this shit is fucking impossible to use. You can use it. Let's actually even show it off. See, it did the thing. It does the thing correctly. But you can't set a hotkey to it. What you can do, let's scroll down, we have kitten hints. So that's also a kitten, right? You would think that, oh, we can use kitten in hotkeys. That's great. Let me make this hotkey that calls kitten at scroll window minus half and plus half, right? That was my thought, a very reasonable and obvious conclusion. But no, only the global kittens are supported, and kittens that start with an @ symbol are not, for some odd fucking reason. I was like, well, shit, goddamn. Okay, I decided to use the launch command to kind of go around that and create basically a process that would run this command like in a shell, in a terminal, which would affect me, like would affect the focus terminal. Nope, that shit still doesn't work. It works if you do overlay, but then it's like very buggy because you can see the new terminal overlay being created and destroyed very quickly, but it's still like, it's not worth it basically. And essentially, why is this shit so difficult? Like, I spent a good 3 hours trying to make it work. It does not. It just does not. It's not viable. Why is there just not a simple half a page scroll command that you can use like what they have for scroll a line and a full page? It is not difficult to implement a half page scroll. Like, I am sure. And yet it doesn't exist. And it's not even viable to do with other things that already do it. It's sad, really. It's really sad. Alright, let's do Uklanar 3. How would I copy this to my clipboard? Let's say I want to repeat this command multiple times and I'm like, okay, this one I want in my clipboard. Usually what I would do is xcp to xclip into my clipboard, right? All this stuff. but then I don't see it, and I would have to actively look at my keyboard, which is a bit like more annoying to do this way. You can say that, oh, you can pipe into dev tty. I think the syntax would be kind of this. I don't remember it exactly. Yeah. There's some way basically to both pipe into xclip or any other command and also pipe it into stdout, like a double pipe. But my argument is basically that it's entirely too many symbols to input for something this simple. When really what I mean is uklaner 3, and if I like it, I want to copy it to my clipboard. So now you know that, oh, we can just press Shift-Alt-M, right? And then copy it through NeoVim. That is super correct, but I don't even have to. I don't have to open it in NeoVim and then copy. I can make it into a single action. Now let's uklaner 3 again, so it's different words. You can see my clipboard is this, and let's change it by pressing Shift-Alt-semicolon. What happens now is that, yep, I copied those. So I created a hotkey similar to Shift-Alt-M that copies the output of the previous command. And then Control-Alt-semicolon is the top. Let's scroll here, and it did exactly what it's supposed to. And those two hotkeys are those. Now, instead of type overlay, I'm using background because I don't need an overlay. I just want a command to be executed. And instead of running neovim-c blah blah blah, I am running xclip-r, which trims the final new line, which is super important, and then selection clipboard. Now, depending on whether you're on Wayland or X11 and other situations, you would be using a different command that takes std in and modifies your clipboard. So xclip isn't always going to work for everyone. I used Wayland for like 3 days on Debian, hated it, but there you could install, I think, Paro Wayland clipboard, and then you would get access to Wayland copy, which I have for some reason. I don't use Wayland, and Wayland paste. But on X11 you would use xclip. And yeah, now I have a really, really clean way of just copying something once I've looked at it. What I used to have to do is pipe things into xclip, like myself, preemptively, having to think about whether a command I would want in my clipboard or not. Or what I would have to do is press Alt-M, which used to open the entire scroll back, and it was like annoying in its own sense because having my cursor in a comfortable position was difficult to figure out with Vim motions. But I would essentially do something like this, having to manually go ahead and select the output and then copy it in NeoVim, which sucked, when really it's a very simple action. Oh, last output to my clipboard, boom. I've been wanting this feature ever since I started using a terminal seriously. Like, yeah, since the start of WSL to now Linux, I've always wanted a feature of just a hotkey to copy the last command's output, and I finally fucking have it. And it took me going to hell and back trying to implement half a page scrolling in my terminal, which now let's remember, I have now in my browser. I made it work. I have it in VS Code and NeoVim, like together, obviously. There may be some other places. I guess not. Oh, I have that in my PDF viewer also. So I have it pretty much everywhere, except my terminal. A place that I would expect to be the most configurable out of all of those other places. But no. Well, except maybe NeoVim. And I guess VS Code. But definitely not the browser. You know? Like, I expect the browser to be the least configurable thing. But yet I have half a page scrolling there and I don't have it in my terminal. It's ridiculous. So yeah, through this journey, I just kind of came across these very, very helpful, basically variables of last command output, first command output on screen, and just screen. That I now finally have these few features, which are going to make my terminal experience so much better. However, I still wish I had half a page scrolling. Oh my god. Please just add a fucking command. I swear to god. Basically, if not having half page scrolling doesn't bother you, I'm so glad. Because it's like a very big deal to me. Surprisingly, it's like, why would it? It's not that big of a deal, but it is very much to me. So, if you like my solution to this problem, I hope you found this useful. I hope you also wanted this feature and now you finally have it. If you use the Kitty terminal already. If you don't, I used to like very easily recommend this terminal. And now I'm not sure. I haven't tried terminals outside of Windows terminal and the Kitty terminal. Those are the only two that I've tried. And Alacrity for a very short period of time and kind of... Oh yeah, it had an issue with cursor shapes not changing. Yeah, basically I haven't tried many, so maybe this is the best that we got, which is scary. So I'm not sure if I can recommend this terminal to you or not. It makes some things incredibly easy. Or rather, let me rephrase this and show you an example. It makes some things, some complex and difficult things which you would not expect, incredibly easy. And makes some obvious, like easy things, impossible. So I guess like pick your poison. I'm still staying on Kitty. I don't want to go discover another terminal. I have a lot of stuff that I love about Kitty, but like, I don't know. I'm very often flabbergasted at it because it's damn fucking ridiculous. Thanks for watching.